Louie T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So, free agency is rapidly approaching. We're talking about free agent targets, offensive tackles for the Washington Commanders. I've done a very comprehensive free agent look at every position that the Commanders should be taking a hard, long look at, including the offensive tackles. And I went through every tackle that I think will be available that the Commanders may be interested in. What I'm going to do is even narrow that focus more so on the guys that I think they should go after. And then I'll give you some names that I think they might actually be interested in as well. Names to keep an eye on and also consider, right? So I want to make sure I preference this with making sure you understand that free agency is fluid. There are players that I will talk about here in this video that could potentially decide to sign back with their original team prior to free agency and will not be available at the start of the new league year when free agency gets underway. So keep that in mind. At the time of this video, all of these players were heading for a crash course on a collision rather with free agency. So as far as I know, these players are available. So hopefully they remain available so that we at least have an opportunity and see what happens from there, right? So we're talking offensive tackles. Obviously the Washington Commanders, after the release of Charles Leno Jr., need two tackles. We were not pleased with the tackle play at all last year, really the offensive line as a whole, but the tackles in particular were very disappointing last year. Not happy with the play of Charles Leno Jr. He's having hip surgery. They went ahead and released him. I wonder if the hip surgery was the reason that they went ahead and moved on from him, or did they just move on from him because they weren't happy with his play either and they wanted to save the money that came with cutting him. Whatever the case may be, they moved on from him. And at the right tackle position, we were very disappointed with what we got out of a free agent acquisition from a year ago in Andrew Wiley. And so we already went into the offseason expecting an upgraded right tackle, not sure if we were going to get one at left. Now we need one at both. So we are going to be aggressive in free agency. I think you have to come away with at least one, or you'd like to come away with one. I can't say that you have to. You may have to double up in the draft, but you'd like to mitigate some of the feeling of needing to get two in the draft by getting one in free agency. So let's take a look at what Washington should do if you ask me. The guys that I think are prospects and free agents that they should pursue. And then I'll also talk about guys to consider that I think the team will be taking a hard, long look at as well. So you start with my free agent targets and the guys that I would go after. And the first name is Yash Newman. This is a guy that is going to be 28 or is 28, just turned 28 in January. He's a swing tackle, can play both left and right tackle, has played both very successfully in his career to this point. Yes, if he's a swing tackle and he's not a starter, a guy that you write in marker or pen as your starting right or left tackle, that means there's some deficiencies there. Of course there are. That's why he's here available in free agency. There's a defect with every single guy that's in free agency for the most part. So for me, I look at his ability to play both sides. I think Washington is going to need a swing tackle, especially if you're not going to bring Cornelius Lucas back, who has been a very formidable swing tackle for the last 3-4 years for Washington. You're going to need a new swing tackle. It's rare to find guys that are young that are able to play swing tackle effectively. Yash Newman can do that. And I look at Yash Newman as a somewhat of an insurance policy. Like if you go in the draft and you only are able to come away with one tackle, the value just isn't there throughout the draft, but you get one in, let's say, the second round, and then the rest of the draft, there just aren't guys that you really love, and there are other positions, because we need a lot of positions, that are available that have more talent, and you just don't get another tackle in the draft. You can start Yash Newman. You can start him, and you'll be okay. And again, it may only be for 1 year, and then you go back next year in the draft and you find the other bookend tackle after selecting one this year, and now you got your two tackles. But at least Yash Newman provides you with an insurance policy should you not be able to find another starting quality tackle in the draft other than one. It's hard to go into the draft looking for two starting tackles. It's hard enough to find one, let alone needing two. Yash Newman, I believe, provides you with not only an insurance policy, but he provides you with the flexibility of not feeling the need to get a left tackle specifically or a right tackle specifically. You get the best tackle that you can potentially get in the draft, whether he's left or right, and Yash Newman can play the opposite side of that guy. That's the beauty in signing a guy like Yash Newman, which is why I'm on board and hope that they really consider signing the 28-year-old veteran tackle out of Green Bay. My second option is Jonah Williams, the former first-round top 10 pick out of Alabama. This is a guy that has played his entire career with the Cincinnati Bengals. He will be 27 in November, so he's still very young. This is a guy that came into the league with question marks as to whether he could stick at left tackle. He hasn't been clean as a prospect. Clearly, the Bengals have been looking for upgrades pretty much since his second, maybe third year in the league. And so they ultimately upgraded over him with Orlando Brown, moved Williams to the right side. He then requested a trade because he sees himself as a left tackle. That's one of the questions you have to ask him is, look, are you willing to stick at right tackle? I don't think he is a left tackle in this league. I don't. And so I like and prefer Jonah Williams on the right side. The question is, will he be okay staying on the right side? Or does he view himself as a left tackle and want to be a left tackle wherever he goes here in the near future? That's something that you'd have to consider with him. I think the first team that gives him an opportunity to be the left tackle is where he's going to go. Money is good, but I think he wants to go back to the left side. I think he views himself as a left tackle, and I think that's what he's going to be looking for in free agency, somewhere where they'll give him the opportunity to go back to his original home, which is left tackle. I'm not really interested in Jonah Williams as a left tackle. I'm more interested in Jonah Williams, the right tackle, myself. So with that said, will Washington be interested in the former first-round pick? We'll see. But that's a guy that does kind of have the antennas raised a bit for me if he's willing to stick on the right side of the offensive line. And then the guy that I want the most in free agency at the tackle position is Makai Beckton. He's another guy that can play left or right, so you don't have to feel pigeonholed into either I need a left or a right tackle in the draft. You can draft whatever guy is the best option available for you at that selection, and Makai Beckton can then play opposite of him, whether it's left or right. I would really like to see Makai Beckton go back to the left side. He's a big physical guy. I'd like to think he can protect well on that blind side of the quarterback. But whatever the case may be, if you find a tremendous left tackle in the draft, Makai Beckton can play right tackle, right? So I just want to see this guy get another opportunity, and he's going to. There are a lot of suitors looking to give Makai Beckton a clean slate and a fresh start in the NFL. This is another former first-round pick, top 15 selection, a guy that people look at and see massive potential in. And I would love to be the team that gets that second chance, gives him that second chance to make a first impression, essentially. And I'd love to see him really live up to that potential that everybody pegged him with coming out of Cincinnati. I'd love to see that happen here in Washington, to be honest with you. He's going to be the closest thing that you're going to find in free agency to like a draft pick almost, like a guy that has that kind of talent that if you figure out a way to get it out of him and he stays healthy, this is like a first round pick all over again, you know? So that's the guy that I would be targeting. But guess what? There are a lot of teams that are looking at Makai Beckton the same way that I'm looking at him. And so you're going to have stiff competition for him. And I don't know if we are able to outbid some of these other teams, but the opportunity will be here for Makai Beckton. That's for sure, if they are interested in Makai Beckton. Then some names that I think the Commanders will consider, right? Their staff, the front office, I think they'll look at some of these other guys, and one of the names is Michael Winnu, right? So this is why I'm uncomfortable with Mike Winnu. This is a guy that played all over the offensive line for the New England Patriots, and a lot of people view him as a guard, as an interior offensive lineman more so than a tackle. Now, he went out to tackle this past year, about halfway through the season, midway through the season, he goes out to tackle and sticks at right tackle for the remainder of the season, actually plays solid football. But the question is, that was a small sample size. Is he capable of staying out there for good, or is he more suited to be kicked inside? I'm not looking to be questioning a guy that I'm wanting to pay free agent dollars to. Like, we're treating him like he's some type of prospect coming out of college where we're not sure if he's a tackle and he offers you WCP, right? Which I like to, worst case protection, right? If you can't play tackle, you can always kick him inside the guard. Well, I'm not looking for him to be a guard. And you got to know what you're paying for. I'm not paying this dude to be a guard if he can't work out at tackle. Like Andrew Wiley last year, we signed him to such a minuscule deal that if he didn't work at tackle, you feel comfortable playing him at guard. We signed him to a 3-year, $21 million deal. That's guard money. Honestly, if we're being honest with one another, that's guard money. That's not starting tackle money. So if he had to kick inside the guard, you'd feel comfortable with that. I don't want to pay Michael Winnu tackle money and then have to end up kicking him inside the guard. That's not what I'm looking to do. So my goal is to stay away from guys where I'm just not sure what I'm getting. And I'm not sure what I'm getting in Michael Winnu, but they may be interested in Michael Winnu. Who's to say? All right. And then the other guy that they might be interested in, I don't know if he's interested in us, but we all know why they would be interested in him, is Tyron Smith. Now, a lot of teams are going to be interested in him. I still think he's got good football left in him. Hasn't played in more than 13 games since like 2000 and like, I don't know, 17? It's been a long time since he's played in more than 13 games in an NFL season. But when he's healthy, he's still very effective. Just to give you some ages real quick, Jonah Williams, I told you, will be 27 in November. Makai Beckton, 25 in April. He's a baby. I love it. That's part of the reason why I'm so intrigued by Makai Beckton. Michael Winnu is 27 in December, so he's relatively young as well. All these guys, for the most part, are going into their second deal, with the exception of Tyron Smith, who obviously is, in NFL years, a very old man, right? And so he'll be 34 in December, but he's a future first ballot Hall of Famer whenever he does retire. And so the only connection that brings him to Washington is Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. and the relationship that he may or may not have with them. That's the only reason he would decide to come to Washington. If he's looking to win, which I would assume he is because he's in the twilight of his career, it doesn't make sense to come to Washington. I've been adamant about that. If you've got options, if you've got choices, and you're trying to win, Washington isn't going to be a logical destination for you right now. Now, you're hoping that there are two factors at play with him if you want Tyron Smith here. And I wouldn't mind him coming here for a year, right? Same thing I said with Jadeveon Clowney if you watch my edge rusher video. They're going to be looking for guys on one-year deals. I wouldn't mind Tyron Smith coming here on a one-year deal. And this is the two things you got to hope that is running through his head. One, he's got a relationship with Dan Quinn that's rock solid, that's ironclad, and he wants to play for Dan Quinn. Loves him to death and would love to play for him. And then two, you got to hope that there's a bit of animus towards Dallas, that they didn't let him finish his career where it started, and he wants to get back at them. And usually revenge is the best motivation for a guy to sign with a team that he normally wouldn't sign with, i.e. Deshaun Jackson signing with Washington back in 2015, or was it 2014? I think it was 2014. He signed with Washington because he was pissed off at the Eagles. He would have never signed in Washington under normal circumstances. But he was so pissed off at the Philadelphia Eagles for how it ended there. He wanted to get back at them so badly, he came straight to Washington. That's what you got to hope Tyron Smith is on, right? He wants revenge. He's seeing red, and he wants to get back at Dallas so badly that he wants to stay in the division. Then we can be of some service to him when you couple in Dan Quinn as the head coach here. But I just don't see that happening. I'm being honest with you. I don't see Tyron Smith being an option for the Burgundy and Gold, but you just never know. And so those are my free agent targets for Washington heading into the free agency period. These things are fluid, as I mentioned before. So who knows if those guys will even be available at the start of free agency. All it takes is for a team to realize we don't want to allow our guy to hit free agency because we probably won't get him back, and they sign him to a long-term deal. We've already seen that with multiple players going back to the teams that they played for a season ago, signing deals prior to the start of free agency. So hopefully those players, I expect Beckton and Williams to get to free agency. There are teams I don't think want those players back, but Yash Newman may be back in Green Bay, right? I could see a scenario where the Patriots bring back Michael Winnu. I don't think they're going to, but I could see a scenario where he's not available. The more options available, the better it is for a team like Washington, because what you don't want is a lack of supply. It's already not a great tackle crop of free agents to begin with. The last thing you want is less options, because then it makes it tougher, and then teams get into bidding wars, and now these players get a little bit more expensive than you were hoping. Again, we're talking about another premium position here in the tackle position. So these go quickly. Again, if Washington wants one of these players, they're going to have to act fast. This is not a position you can, again, wait and sit and hope that a guy is just passed over multiple times. Not at the tackle position. Maybe that happens at linebacker. Maybe that happens at safety. That doesn't happen at tackle. It doesn't happen at edge rusher. So if they want one of these guys, they're going to have to act quickly. And I see them being aggressive early on, trying to get themselves a tackle after the release of Charles Leno Jr. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. Leave it down in the comment section. What do you think about the tackle position as a whole, and who would you go after in free agency for the Washington Commanders? Can't wait to read your responses. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Take care. LouieTeeNetwork.